Ordinance Committee meeting of September 9th to order, discussing amending the Municipal Code Title 10, Section 10.44152, regulation of parking upon municipally owned and/or operated parking lots.
We'll do roll call first. Councilmember Gutierrez?
Present.
Councilmember Jordan?
Here.
Chair Sneddon?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have any changes to the agenda
No changes to the agenda.
or any public comment for items not on the agenda?
No public comment in chambers or online.
Okay, thank you. With that, we would invite staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Sneddon. Council members, my name is Edward France. I'm the Downtown Plaza and Parking Manager, and today I bring to you a recommendation to update the municipal code governing downtown parking to allow for modern payment methods. Specifically, we're asking you to consider amending Municipal Code Title 10, Section 10.44.152, regulation of parking upon municipally owned and/or operated parking lots. The purpose of this revision is to modernize the regulation of how and when we are allowed to accept payment. This change would align with current parking industry practices and allow for new payment types, such as self-service pay stations. In turn, this allows for efficient use of smaller lots where a gate control system isn't physically or economically feasible. Adoption of this amendment would allow for a new revenue generation that I will detail shortly, as well as provide opportunity for future cost savings. The proposed changes in this municipal code revision amend the Muni Code to require payment of parking fees before a vehicle exits a parking lot. What I mean by that is that we would do away with an antiquated system of drop boxes and envelopes requesting payment by mail that have not been operationally feasible for a number of years. Instead, this would allow the Public Works Director to determine procedures and payment methods for each municipal parking facility. Additionally, and importantly, this would allow for enforcement of unpaid parking fees via fee due notice that becomes citation if gone unpaid, just like has been implemented for the last 10 years at the waterfront. This improvement in revenue recovery is important as our current system is both labor intensive and results in very low recovery rates. Without an enforcement mechanism, we often are encouraging people to game the system. This change would allow downtown parking to implement the pilot program at the Helena lot that was recommended in the adopted budget. This is a 29-space parking lot in the Funk Zone that is a smaller lot that is part of the downtown parking system, but where it has been unfeasible to operate a traditional gate control system. We have proposed piloting a pay-by-plate system where a user can park and pay on their phone or by visiting the self-service kiosk, ultimately entering their plate and not needing to return to the vehicle, though there are actually multiple modalities that could be implemented under this municipal code revision. This allows us flexibility for what technology is available at the time. The pilot is included in our fee resolution with elements that were adopted as part of this year's budget process. And importantly, we've reviewed this site to ensure that it is ADA compliant and follows our best practices in accessibility. This pilot is important to allow us to test new payment technologies and plan for future parking and revenue control systems in other downtown surface lots. So, in conclusion, our recommendation is to consider the proposed amendment to Municipal Code Section 10.44.152 pertaining to parking in municipally owned and/or operated parking lots, and forward the proposed amendment to the City Council for introduction and adoption. Thank you.
Thank you for your brief presentation. And do we have questions from committee members? Councilmember Jordan.
Thank you. Ed, so on occasion, I'm pretty sure I've seen that Granada Garage for sure, maybe even the waterfront, that we've had events where we actually just collect a payment as you go in, like $5 or $10, and this will clear that up and give us that option too at the same time, because I think that was probably outside the scope of the 100-year-old municipal code, right?
Correct. We have a way to govern event, but actually I will say that we will look to a way that is more efficient to manage events, both for customer service and also for our staffing.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I have some questions, thank you. So in the staff report, in discussion part, it says the requested changes eliminate strict language specifying that fees must be paid prior to exiting a parking lot to either an attendant or by mail. It's not changing that those have to be paid before they leave, it's just changing whether it needs to be paid to an attendant or by mail?
Chair Sneddon, very important point. This is kind of the meat of the matter, in that the prior system really gave people up to 3 days after they left the parking lot to make payment, and didn't allow us the flexibility, for example, in one of these smaller lots, to use an alternative system. So it basically assumed that we would use a revenue control like a gate arm, and then if the gate was up at the end of the day, our attendants would put a physical envelope on each vehicle and expect for payment to then be made after the fact. And of course, the user would have to assess what their own payment due was for how long they may have stayed. So that was not feasible to continue. This would allow us to, would effectively allow the Public Works Director, who is referenced in other sections of this municipal code, to decide per each lot what is the appropriate way to collect payment that would then be signed. So similar to how the waterfront uses either payment at exit for the wharf or for the main harbor lot, but then uses a different system for the many smaller lots along the waterfront, we would be able to use a different system in our other kind of peripheral lots that we currently are not allowed to.
But in any case, the payment needs to be made before they leave the lot?
In any case, yes, the payment would need to be made before they left the lot. And I can talk more about timing if that, but
Yeah,
yes,
I'd like to.
yes.
So what happens, it's happened to me, where, oh, I forgot my card. Oh, I don't have my phone on me. Oh, I don't have my checkbook. But I still can pay it. And you talked about the envelopes before, but currently now, if the gate's just up sometimes, the gate's just
Yeah.
up and there's no
So-
envelope or?
Chair Sneddon, I'll answer your question in two parts. First, for the system overall, especially where we do have gate control arms, this happens frequently, where someone is unable to pay at that moment because I've done this, where, oh, shoot, I was rushing out of the house, I didn't need to buy anything, I had a meeting, and I didn't bring my wallet. This happens less so now that people can frequently pay by phone. Nobody seems to leave without their phone, which we do accept Apple Pay and I guess Google Pay. However, what we're able to do is give people a payment envelope, which we call a PINK, right? Which basically says you'll come back and pay us, right? Or we'll basically follow up with you. But that's part of this. That doesn't have an enforcement mechanism. And so we actually spend a lot of time with these envelopes where we're hoping to collect payment, but we, in most cases, do not. And some people do abuse the system for that reason. This would allow us to effectively give a fee due envelope there in those lots. So that's part of this shift. This allows us flexibility so we can follow up with a fee due that would be that fee. But separately and importantly, for a lot like the Helena lot, where we cannot have a kiosk and we can't have a gate. For example, that lot opens up into a private lot for the Moxie Hotel. It just physically cannot really be separated. We could, in that case, sign that you do need to pay in advance, just like on any of the waterfront lots where you would pay at one of the pay stations. And there are ways that you can actually extend that payment, but for most people, they would pay, they would estimate how long they plan to be there, and then they would make that payment.
Okay, thank you for that. So I think I misunderstood that this was about being able to pay with your plate and not have to go to a kiosk and then come back and use that time paying for it and waiting in line, and you don't have the slip in your window, so maybe you're getting a ticket while you're going and paying there's a lot of stress involved with the kiosk type payment. I thought this was eliminating the need for a physical kiosk.
Chair Sneddon, it does, in that it allows for the flexibility for us to use the pay-by-plate technology that will allow people to either with their phone make payment, just with all they need to know is their plate number, or to go to the pay station, enter their plate, and then just walk away from there. This is the same technology that we are pursuing, that Waterfront is pursuing, that we are in a partnership for contracting with the police department, Waterfront, and downtown parking. And what's important about this municipal code revision is it has flexibility to allow us to use these different technologies. So likely, and that actually is part of why there's different terminology used, likely we would, for a period of maybe 4 to 6 months, based on our current timeline, actually use pay and display, which is exactly what's in the Waterfront now, where you would go to the kiosk, make payment, then go back to your vehicle, put it on the dash, and then walk away. And then as we, with our contracting that is underway, take on the technology that allows us to do pay-by-plate, which is a major customer service improvement.
Yes.
We would implement that later this fiscal year.
When you're doing pay-by-plate, can you extend your time? You're in an event, you've been there, oh no, I only thought I was going to be here for an hour. Can you?
Chair Sneddon, exactly. And that's one of the really important shifts that the play-by-plate allows, is you don't have to go back to your vehicle and change your pay and display that's printed out. The system is all integrated, and if you tell the system that you've extended an extra hour, it immediately is aware of that. So that's part of why we're pursuing that improvement.
Okay, and then I have another question about the QR codes that are currently now on the, I mean, since we're opening this up and talking about flexibility, you get a ticket now. You can pay using the QR code on the back of that entrance ticket. Is that still
Right.
something
So-
that you
so-
can do, where you can pay while you're waiting in a 20-minute line to exit the Vic Theater?
Chair Sneddon, yes, using Sweb Mobile for our system within the gate access controlled lots, which we use a system that's called Ski Data. That system is operational. For this specific lot, that would not be. It'll be using the same technology that the Waterfront does. And so this would operate to the user like the Waterfront lots that it's closest to. It would be outside of our Ski Data system because our Ski Data is more limited. However, I will invite you and any of the public who's watching to tune into the Downtown Parking Committee meeting this Thursday, where we'll be presenting on the e-commerce solutions that we're implementing literally over this next month, which include more of that flexibility to be able to make payment kind of in the moment and to use QR codes, just like the Sweb Mobile, which was implemented in 2021.
Thank you. And so this helps us move away from our outdated, antiquated equipment that is no longer produced anymore. Yeah.
Chair Sneddon, exactly. This allows us both to pilot in the Helena lot and to learn the ways that we can actually take on new systems where we will not need to update the Muni Code for the exact mechanism of how we accept payment, but instead allow us to implement future solutions, which we're not fully sure which are the best solutions on the market at this point in time.
I'm glad to hear you say that. Thank you. So really the only changes here are allowing there to be a variety of ways of payment. This isn't about how much the payment or how much free time or any of the other options. It's just the mechanism for payment.
Correct.
And I will say typically, what I've seen in other jurisdictions, Councilmember Schneden, is that these kinds of administrative procedures are not codified in a municipal code. And so this basically really limits what staff can do in terms of piloting technology or trying new things out. And so by eliminating kind of the very specified technology that's in the municipal code, it gives us the ability to try different systems and see what works best, and also try different systems in different parking lots. And so I think it's just a less administratively burdensome thing versus having to come back to Ordinance Committee, then come back to Council and amend the Muni Code every time we want to change technology in our parking lots.
Understood. I think, and Councilmember Gutierrez has a question too, but I will ask this because I think where that stems from is that, I'll speak for myself, but many don't want parking meters. So, for instance, would we have the ability for it to come back to council before one of those pilots was installing parking meters everywhere? Or I particularly don't like the pay at the kiosk where you have to go back and forth, and I wouldn't want to invest city resources anymore into that outdated technology. And I think there's a question I have because, with this, it's complete flexibility, and I'm not sure I'm comfortable with the complete flexibility if it
What-
might mean parking meters.
We'd still have to come back to council if the contract exceeded a little over $100,000. So if we're proposing to put parking meters, say, all over downtown, that would absolutely exceed my signing authority as city administrator, and it would have to come to council for contract.
So it'd be
And
cost controlled, not ordinance
It's a cost control,
controlled.
not an
Yeah.
ordinance control. And, similarly, I think, doing, one lot or trying a technology in one lot and then coming back to council and saying, hey, we piloted this, this is what we recommend, here's the findings of the pilot. So it gives us the ability to try something in one or two lots before we spend a whole lot of money. And so we may do that in some lots to try out new technology, but we wouldn't wholesale change systems without either talking to Downtown Parking Committee or coming to council.
Okay, I guess I'll come back to that in the comments because I'm as much as I want the flexibility and the ability, I'm not comfortable so much giving away the authority for that type, because they're very hot button topics, and it may come that it comes to downtown parking or somewhere because of revenue generation, like, yes, we must do these parking meters everywhere, and then whereas like there may be reasons not to do that for certain reasons in El Pueblo Viejo or something. So we can come back to that in discussion. Councilmember Gutierrez.
Thank you, Chair. Are you all planning to implement the same type of parking payment system that like UCSB campus uses? Because it sounds a lot like that. I think they call it Park Mobile, right? You download an app and you just enter your lot number and your license plate. You can just pay from your phone, and it sends you alerts when your parking time's up and you have to renew it or what have you.
Ordinance Committee Member Gutierrez, through the chair, correct, and I'll clarify. So Park Mobile is one of the many app payment systems. What's happening in the industry is that there's an increasing compatibility where you can actually have multiple different forms of payment that are compatible with the system or the infrastructure that the city will procure. Right, so our system currently would be through T2, and then what we take on, which is because we already have it, and then what we take on will likely be compatible with Park Mobile and multiple other payment options. And this is really beneficial because somebody may have a system in their city, and then they're visiting our city, and they don't have to download a new app. So this has been a trend that's very significant in kind of the parking industry. Is it's just making it easy for customers. Like we should be making it easier for people to pay us and not have to stress about that.
So when it comes to people who don't have a phone, whether because their phone battery died or they forgot it at home or they just
Yep.
don't have a phone, the kiosk will still be there where they can manually enter in their info and pay that way.
Exactly. So the kiosk is kind of a core feature within a lot, and then the phone is kind of an additional thing, especially to the example that Chair Stedden gave of someone with like the ability to extend their time because they're away longer. That would really, you could probably do that through a kiosk, but ultimately you'd want to do that while you're away. You wouldn't want to have to walk back. So the phone is kind of a supplemental.
So will we be contracting with an outside developer to give us the software to do that, or are we going to create it in-house?
That would certainly be an outside contract. So the parking system vendor will have the software, and generally what I'm referring to is kind of a more of an open interface where or like an API where other payment systems can plug into that, but they would be the city's system, and that would be, I'm almost certainly fully developed by an outside contractor.
And how much is that going to cost to upgrade everything?
It's a good question, and that's outside of what we've prepared for the Helena lot. The good news is that we are probably entering an environment where it's becoming increasingly inexpensive to add on to the loops. So I can't really give you quotes now. What was paid, say, by the waterfront 10 years ago is going to be different than what we're paying kind of over the next 12 months.
Okay. All right. So just in general, maybe you can just remind me. So how much money is generated for our parking from like sales tax and so forth? Because it always kind of makes me wonder, we're already paying our taxes. That's supposed to be keeping our public spaces maintained. Why are we paying more on top of it? You see what I'm saying?
So, Councilmember Gutierrez, right now, while last year the general fund subsidized the parking fund, this year we are not doing that. And so there are no sales tax dollars, there are no property tax dollars that go towards the parking facilities, or that's not part of what pays for the parking. And part of that is, there are a lot of tourists that come to Santa Barbara who don't pay taxes. So it's a way to recoup costs from people who are visiting the community. We do have special rates, and we can talk a little bit about that, for residents who want to have like a weekender pass. So it's a discounted rate. We have the waterfront annual pass for residents. So that is a way to account for that they are paying their taxes, but still provides a little bit of money that allows us to maintain the parking lots, repave the parking lots. But most of it is from visitors, that are coming from out of town or visiting downtown. And so we try to find other ways to help local residents reduce parking costs. But there aren't any general fund tax dollars that support the parking fund.
Okay, thanks.
City Attorney John
Thank
Dornis.
you. Thank you, Chair. And just for Brown Act purposes, if we can just, I understand it's related, but I'd just like to keep the conversation as to the ordinance change, which is really about the mechanism of payment, not the actual rates and all that. So if we can see it's related, but I just wanted to keep in that kind of lane. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then for discussion, I'll just, I'll start. I don't see any other lights on yet, but I would say, I think the flexibility is great, and I think the new technologies are great, moving in that direction. I sort of object to the terminology of gaming the system. I know we've talked about this before. I really just don't think of people coming to downtown or working downtown or visiting as, I just don't like the mindset of gaming the system. And with that mindset not being that, but how to be welcoming, there are a couple things in here that I would change. I'm okay with pay by plate, as long as you don't have to like go to a kiosk and then come back and that. I don't, I think that where it says the Public Works Director shall have the authority to determine which payment methods are accepted at each municipal parking facility, I'm okay with that, but excluding street parking. I think anything that we're going to talk about doing on street parking is a broader decision than like how you collect payment at any specific lot. And I think those are financial decisions, efficiency decisions, and things like that. So as long as we're clear that this is excluding street parking, that we're not going to pilot, parking meters. I'm going to hyperbole because I know we're not going to do that. But it's been talked about in the funk zone, different places, and it seemed like a surety that we would go that route. But when it came to council, we didn't go that route. So I still would like that for street parking.
Yeah, one option could be, instead of it, the Public Works Director, you could have it be the city administrator. That could be one option, so that it stays, there's a little more of that political sensitivity. That could be one option. And, I think, again, just the flexibility of the payments, and, we could try to come up with some, recognizing that if this is going to have to come to council as well, we could think about some language that around street parking payment or things like that, or reporting to council on pilot programs, or let us think a little bit about that.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're going to do it in more than expand technology, or if it's above a certain cost figure, I think we can explore that a little bit further.
If I may, to Chair Sutton, too, as to Ms. McAdoo's point, I think she raised a really good point in the beginning where she said, usually this stuff's not codified in MuniCode. It's so rare to do that. And so all this is doing is just not having it codified, but it is written somewhere in terms of like procedures. And so I think it's not having such language in the code, like the language itself gives the flexibility to have the administrative process, and then through the city administrator's office and public works director, that those points taken today can be considered as part of that administrative process that that we regulate, that we establish in kind of writing, right? Separate from the code, but it's still in writing fashion somewhere in that regard.
I appreciate that. I completely agree that it should be at the discretion of Public Works, what kind of payment system within a city parking lot. I don't want this flexibility to then extend beyond that to be citywide on the streets. This is what we're going to pilot or do or
Sure.
try. And so it says parking facility in the ordinance, so I'm just, if we
Just in-
leave it at parking
yeah.
facilities, fine.
If I could add
Yeah.
one, our fee resolution doesn't currently include any payment for on-street. And so any on-street payment would require in addition to the fee resolution. And I would ask, per my reading of this in terms of municipally owned and or operated parking lots, I would read this to only apply to lots and not to what we call on-street. We typically separate on-street versus off-street pretty strongly.
Yeah, that's how I'm reading it too, and that's why I'm asking for verification that that is in fact the interpretation.
Yes,
Yeah.
you are correct.
Okay,
It
thank you.
only applies to lots.
Okay, that's, as long as it still says parking facility and it says parking lots, I'm okay with that. Thank you for clarifying that. I just wanted to be sure. And then also, it's a small point, but it's in the PowerPoint about requiring payment before a vehicle exits. It's new on item like number 2, failure to pay. Required fee using an authorized method constitutes a violation and may result in issuance of a parking citation, vehicle immobilization, or towing. And I feel like we've gone from maybe you could pay it a day later with your envelope because you didn't have your wallet to the language of it is like now we can immobilize or tow your car. I don't know. There's something about that jump that.
Chair Snyder, and I can help with that. It's just that it sets forth the expectation, but the key word is the word may in there. So obviously,
It says shall.
does it say shall or may?
Oh, shall constitute a violation.
Yes,
But I guess
yes.
may result
So-
issuance.
so-
Okay.
So the may being the point of that there is flexibility, like emergency happens, something downtown, staff can work with them. The reason you have shall for a violation is you don't want to have any wiggle room when it comes to what's a violation or not, but the decision or to actually cite a person or take, that enforcement action, that discretion can still remain with staff. So there's always exigent circumstances or the like that staff can work with and deal with.
Okay, thank you. I think those are just comments on maybe the wording a little bit, and I don't know if my colleagues feel the same way or not. I think it went to sort of from you can pay it with a QR code or on your app or this to if it's not paid before you leave, it's the hammer's coming down.
Chair Sneddon, if I could
Yeah.
say one thing about this process, because I flagged the same issue, and I think it's important to note that unlike 10 years ago when the waterfront came to you all and modified their municipal code, at that point, pay and display was the only technology, and they wrote the municipal code fully to pay and display. And in this process, we realized, one, we know that we're going to upgrade to a better system. And we also know that we don't want to change the ordinance every time we take on a new system. And I think that it was written for that flexibility for the system, which is why I think that item number 2 is very broad. I don't think any of that is intended for us to implement for this purpose. I think it's intended for whatever future scenario. And so I definitely understand how that comes across. And I think that a lot of that is simply because we're writing this to be more broad and not to be technology specific.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? No? Do we have any public comment?
No public comment on this item.
Thank you. Okay. Councilmember Jordan.
I'll move the staff recommendation with comments to council, just to make sure those comments get handled. Just one observation, because I've been hanging around a long time and cracking up over the envelope talk. We used to call it the dreaded after-movie envelope, and I'd be yelling at Dana, "Get in the car." She'd be going, "What are you talking about?" Because you'd see the guy coming down the ramp, and you would know that if you can get out before he gets there, the gates are already open. Back before you used to be able to, trap me in there with a credit card. But so this is, I just know generally we're always way behind modern technology. So anything we're moving to get to a point where we're using technology and have less burden on generating revenues to not use technology, I think that's a great step forward. So I'm totally behind this.
Is there a second to the motion? Or, all right, I will second it with comments also, that I also appreciate modernization and flexibility, particularly in these small lots and different lots, and anything that we could do to move away from the outdated ARM system that needs updating and is no longer available is great. I'll add the comment that I think like the way the waterfront works with the waterfront pass, that if the license plate readers can work that way for a weekender pass or locals pass, I think that would be a real win. I realize that's not part of this ordinance, but as you're looking at piloting different things, if that leads to ease of use and ability to come downtown and different places, I think that would be good. And then I just want to be very clear that it's excluding street parking, that only applies to parking lots and facilities. So, any other comments?
I just,
Oh, Councilmember.
Chair. Yeah, I'm not going to support it just because, after running my campaign last year in November, the majority of the people I spoke to in my district said that one of the biggest reasons they just don't like going downtown or the waterfront or any area is because of the parking situation and the cost of parking. So I've been pretty outspoken about just having parking be free like it is in our neighboring cities. So, I won't be supporting the ordinance moving forward.
Thank you. Fair enough. I actually agree with you on that, and I'll vote to move it forward for council to move it forward and for the flexibility and payment options. So we have a vote.
A recommendation moved by Councilmember Jordan, seconded by Chair Sneddon, that the Ordinance Committee forward staff recommendation to consider the proposed amendments to Municipal Code Section 10.44.152, regulation of parking upon municipally owned and/or operated parking lots, to include the comments that can include to look at the administrative process, possibly changing authority from Public Works Director to City Administrator, and clear that we're excluding street parking.
Thank
Ready
you.
to vote? Okay. And that's 2-1. Oscar voting no.
Okay, thank you. The screen says waiting for a vote, but we are,
Yeah.
oh,
Because he's, yeah, it might be
Okay.
because of council, but I have it.
You have it
noted that-
recorded.
yeah,
Okay.
two-
okay. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Well, when do we expect this to come to council?
One moment, Chair Sneddon. I apologize for not having this in front of me, but I believe that we are coming to council in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I
For
didn't mean to put
introduction.
you on the spot there. Sometime in the next month.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. We're adjourned.